Scene script, have you ever looked in the mirror and asked yourself, what's wrong with me? This is a question that, in the quiet corners of our minds, many of us have asked. It's a question born out of self-doubt, a feeling that can be as common as the air we breathe, yet as destructive as a wildfire. It's a question that is often whispered in the silence of the night, when the world is asleep, and we are left alone with our thoughts. Imagine a man named John. John is just like you and me. He has dreams, aspirations, loves, and fears. But there's a constant drumbeat in his head, a relentless rhythm that echoes the question, what's wrong with me? He scrutinizes every decision he makes, every word he utters, every step he takes. John's self-questioning is not a silent observer. It seeps into his daily life, casting a shadow over his existence. It taints his interactions with others, making him second-guess his worth. It's a whisper in his ear during a job interview, a nagging doubt during a date, a haunting specter that lingers, even during his happiest moments. This self-questioning affects his relationships. It makes him hold back, afraid to reveal his true self, worried that he might not be enough. It prevents him from taking risks, from chasing dreams, from embracing the beautiful chaos of life. This self-questioning, the self-doubt, it's a common thread that weaves through the tapestry of human existence. It's a universal struggle, a shared experience. We all have our moments of self-questioning, moments when we feel like we're not enough, moments when we ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? But here's the thing, this self-questioning, this self-doubt, it doesn't define us. It doesn't write our story. It's merely a chapter, a page, a sentence in the grand narrative of our lives. Just like John, we all have moments when we question our worth, but it's important to remember that this isn't the end of the story. What if the question, what's wrong with me, could be transformed into something empowering? Imagine for a moment that you could shift your perspective, seeing the world through a different lens. What if you could reframe those negative thoughts that often creep into our minds? Let's consider the story of a man named John. John was always quick to criticize himself. He'd constantly ask, what's wrong with me? Whenever he faced a setback or made a mistake. His self-doubt was like a dark cloud always looming overhead. But one day, he decided to challenge this thought pattern. John started to reframe his question. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? He began to ask, how can I improve? This simple shift in perspective transformed his outlook. It became less about self-criticism and more about self-improvement. His dark cloud began to clear, replaced by a beacon of self-empowerment. It's a powerful lesson in the strength of perspective. When we change how we view ourselves, we can change how we interact with the world. Instead of focusing on our flaws, we can focus on our potential. Instead of dwelling on our mistakes, we can learn from them. This is not about denying our flaws, we all have them. It's about acknowledging these flaws and using them as stepping stones for growth. A wise person once said, the only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing. So let's not dwell on what's wrong with us, but rather let's focus on how we can learn and grow from our experiences. In the grand scheme of things, our perspective shapes our reality. It's the lens through which we see the world, and with the right lens, we can transform our reality into something empowering. We can use our flaws, our setbacks, and our mistakes as stepping stones to become better versions of ourselves. So the next time you find yourself asking, what's wrong with me? Remember John's story. Remember the power of perspective. And remember that it's not about denying our flaws, but rather acknowledging them and using them as stepping stones for growth. The journey to self-acceptance isn't always easy, but it is certainly worthwhile. It's a road paved with obstacles, self-doubt, and fear. Yet it's also illuminated by the glow of self-discovery, growth, and transformation. Let's consider a scenario. Picture a woman named Lisa. Lisa, like many of us, has always been her own worst critic. She constantly scrutinized her every action, second-guessed her choices, and never felt good enough. She was shackled by her own insecurities and self-doubt, living a life colored by the gray shades of dissatisfaction and discontentment. But then, something shifted. Lisa started to realize the power of self-acceptance. She began to understand that her worth was not dictated by her mistakes or shortcomings, but by her unique strengths and qualities. She understood that she was not defined by her past, but by who she chose to be in the present. She started to accept herself, her strengths, her weaknesses, her past, and her present. She recognized her imperfections as part of her human experience. not as flaws that diminished her worth. She began to look at herself through a lens of compassion and understanding, rather than judgment and criticism. And as she did, Lisa noticed a profound change. She felt lighter, freer. Her relationships improved, her self-esteem grew, and she found herself more at peace. She was better equipped to deal with life's challenges, not because they became any less daunting, but because she was stronger, more resilient. She had learned to accept herself, and that made all the difference. The journey of self-acceptance is a transformative one. It's about understanding and embracing who you truly are, without the desire to fit into someone else's mold. It's about celebrating your uniqueness and acknowledging your worth. Like Lisa, when we learn to accept ourselves, we open the door to positive change and growth. It is a journey that is not always easy, but it is certainly worthwhile. And it all starts with a simple question: what if I'm enough just as I am? So, let's embark on this journey together towards a life of self-acceptance, self-love, and ultimately self-improvement. Remember, the journey to self-acceptance isn't always easy, but it is certainly worthwhile. So what if instead of asking what's wrong with me, we start asking, how can I improve? Throughout this discussion, we've explored the power of perspective and the importance of self-acceptance. We've seen how a change in perspective can transform our self-perception, and how accepting ourselves, flaws and all, is a crucial step in our journey. But let's not stop there. Once we've accepted ourselves, it's time to seek improvement, to realize that there's always room for growth, that there's always an opportunity to become a better version of ourselves. It's not about fixing what's wrong, but about enhancing what's already right. Let's replace self-criticism with self-improvement. Let's replace doubt with confidence. Let's replace fear with courage. And let's replace stagnation with growth. So next time you look in the mirror, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Instead, ask, how can I become a better version of myself? There is nothing wrong with you, only room for growth and improvement. Always remember, you are awesome.